Welcome to the Established Podcast. Conversations with founders, investors, and changemakers shaping the future. Each episode uncovers the stories and lessons driving today's innovation economy. Powered by Established, we spark innovation and build connections that matter through strategy, storytelling, events, community building, investment programs, and more. Now, let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to the Established Podcast. I'm Frank Gruber, your host. I'm also the co-CEO of Established, managing partner at Established Ventures. And today I'm joined by Angus Nelson. He's the author of Neuroresilient Leader, the internal operating system for leading at the speed of change. He's the founder of Evolve Leadership and executive coach for founders, CEOs, and high-performing leaders. Welcome, Angus. Thanks so much for being here. Really a pleasure to have you.
Well, Frank, it's great to be here after all of our technological issues in our tech world. We finally made it.
We made it. For those that are not familiar, can you just kind of level set here, let people know they're meeting you for the first time. What's the journey that took you from, when you first started to becoming a leadership coach and author, and that could give a little bit of background on what you've been up to?
Sure. So if you're a founder, you're listening to this and your company's growing, but your thinking's starting to get noisier. And perhaps, some of the challenges that you're having right now seem to be more internal than external because you're questioning yourself or losing trust in your instincts, then this is a conversation for you. Because it's not necessarily the strategy you're dealing with, but rather it's the pressure you're facing. And the reason why I know that is because that's what happened to me. Years ago in my first startup, I made a bunch of mistakes. We lost a bunch of money. And I did what most of us do. I put my head down and I just worked harder, doing 80, 90-hour work weeks until finally I started drinking. I got into porn. I started sleeping around. I blew up my marriage, blew up my business, went through all this dark period where I went and got counseling, started learning about human behavior and psychology, and everything that I now teach is a product of lessons learned the hard way. And I do what I do so that no one else has to go through that. And so that was the beginnings of it. I then got into running an innovation association with Jeremiah Aoyang. The two of us started this company. I started working with these high-end executives, and these senior executives were facing all these other pressures themselves, and I started to recognize the different patterns. Started speaking to those. One of them one day just said, "Angus, man, you'd make a great coach." And that's how it all started.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't realize the backstory with Jeremiah either. That's great to hear. And obviously known him for quite some time. And the book here is, I've got it in the
Look
flesh.
at you. You have it.
I got
Nice.
it. Yeah. So wanted you to tell us a little bit more about, why you wrote this book. You kind of shared a little bit about it, but can you tell a little bit more about what made you realize that maybe people need to be life, can happen and you need to be a little more resilient. And here, you need to have an operating system to kind of manage that versus just tactics.
Yeah. So I love the fact that you have that book. In the context of this conversation, I wrote the book so that people who couldn't get to me would be able to have a resource at any time that they could go to. They could open up this page and you can see it in yourself. You can open up to any page and you're going to see some centered, bold text, something that's going to jump out.
No, it's written in a really unique way. If you look through it, it's got a lot. You can just jump right in and little snippets, and it kind of gives you little tips along the way. I thought that was really interesting.
And that was highly intentional. My typesetter hates me, but I did that for the exact same reason, because executives and founders were busy. We don't have a lot of time. We just need something to sink a hook into our brain to get us focused again. And in the middle of the book, I talk about my mission, which is to get 10 million leaders to give 10 minutes a day to become a 10.0 version of themselves. And what I mean by that is all of our days are filled with inputs, but most of those inputs are detrimental. They're inundated with news, media, talk radio, I'm not going to name any, different news agencies or outlets. Whatever it is that you're listening to, it's agitation. Add that to all the different stories you're hearing about, the struggles that you're facing and the pressures, and trying to make everybody happy, blah, blah, blah. We aren't spending enough time feeding our soul, feeding our mind with how powerful we really are. And this book is about giving leaders their agency, their sovereignty, their personal power back. Because that's what slipped. And the last thing I'll say about this is the name of the book, Neuroresilient Leader. First of all, it's the neuro side, which is that mental, emotional, and identity state That's the wiring of our nervous system, right? That's our electrical computer, whatever you want to call it. The second piece is resilience. Most people think resilience is like white knuckle it. We're going to get through. Let's get to the other side. Let's go. And the truth is, it's more like the suspension system in your vehicle, where you have four wheels reading data and information off the road, adjusting accordingly to smooth the ride. And that's what happens when you start to become resilient. You learn how to smooth the ride in amongst the uncertainty and the unknown, the change, the disruption. And then lastly, the leader part of this is not just the someone who's in charge. It's actually someone who's leading themselves first. And that's the makeup of the neuroresilient leader.
I love that. And it reminded me that, it's not maybe the person that gets there the fastest or the hardest or works the hardest or hustles the best. It's people that can, like, especially that excel at life are, yes, you'll get far doing that, but like, it's people that can actually bounce and ride the waves of the road in life, because I feel like there are going to be those bumps along the way, especially if you're starting a company. You know this from running companies. So that's great. I love that. And so let's talk about some people might have like this idea of someday, and there's a bit of an addiction you talk about in the book about the someday addiction. So why do ambitious people keep postponing maybe the things that they actually want to do?
Well, it's irony, right? Ambition is a great, medicine, a great drug. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And it is a natural expression of some creative being. And this is the genius of the people I work with. In that ambition, what happens oftentimes is we put too much ambition on doing the work. The work feels productive. The work feels meaningful. The work feels like I'm making progress in my journey. The problem is what I do is I delay the things I actually tell myself I'm doing the work for. When I get to X, I'll get Y. It's what we tell ourselves. When I get to this money, when I get to this title, when I get to this position, then I can be happy. Then I can get married. Then I can have kids. Then I can retire. Like all those different things. And that's the someday. And we lie to ourselves over and over again because we put so much meaning on the actual doing, we cannot do any of the being. And so one of the stories I tell in the book is about me and my family. We wanted to take a year and move to Portugal and give our kids, actually, we just wanted to move to Europe, is the honest truth. Portugal is a whole nother story. You can watch some of my YouTube videos about how that came about, because we'd never been to Portugal. We moved here sight unseen. But we knew in 2024 on the old vision board, it said, we're going to go to Europe. But in the middle of, the pandemic, we said, well, screw this, let's go. And so in 2022, we made the move, we made the jump, because we weren't going to wait till someday. And that unfolded a whole number of things that we had no idea would bring us such pleasure and such connection and such, fulfillment, because we crafted a life around what we wanted. We weren't trying to strive to get to the thing that we thought would bring us what we wanted.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And the idea that you made someday today, I mean, that's what people can do, right? Like, get that. Live in the now. I love the way you're talking about being present versus just like living in the moment. I know sometimes, a lot of times the process is the joy in some cases, in many cases. And that's where I think I'm trying to get to, at least. So talk a little bit more about, you've got a chapter about, execute while others analyze. So let's talk a little bit more about that and how leaders know when to stop preparing and maybe start moving. Maybe there's some way, and they're just like, again, overanalyzing a situation.
Yeah, and let me kind of couch that with some context. We're living in a time where obviously AI and the market volatility, global complexity, all of it's accelerating faster than most people can adapt right now. And the leaders, what we do is kind of what my story was, is I just worked harder. That's what most people do, is they're trying to outwork velocity, and that's an impossibility. So every single business problem at that level, suddenly, whether it's analysis paralysis, whether it's, stalled innovation, whether it's hemorrhaging talent, whether it's, fill in the blank, it's actually an internal operating system problem. Because the single greatest and most expensive bottleneck in the business isn't the strategy, the tactics, or what have you. It's the dysregulated nervous system state that treats every daily challenge like a life-threatening emergency. And so that part of your brain that goes fight, flight, or freeze is now inundated with so much information, so much change, so much unknown and uncertainty that we can't think straight. And so where someone would say, I'm delaying or I'm procrastinating or whatever, you're actually in a state where you're dysregulated. And if you could take some time to actually address that, suddenly the clarity comes. And this is part of that C3 protocol. It's the number one core foundation is you have to get clarity on who you are, what you're about, what do you really want, and then start shaping your business and your life around that first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And I think sometimes, like you said, people are operating in more of a, basically attacking whatever the biggest fire drill is at the time, right? Because there's so much and you can't process it all. Like you cannot process everything. And I think so it's almost out of fear,
Yeah. Fear, scarcity.
Yeah.
It's in this place of also deficit because you can't operate. All the neurons aren't firing at the same time, one. Number two is all you can see is this very myopic tunnel because everything is collapsed in that time of panic or fear. And we won't call it that. We're gonna get a call from venture capital. We're gonna get a call from, some peer, some mentor, and we're like, everything's amazing. It's awesome. We're crushing it. And meanwhile, inside, you're suffering. And you're suffering under something that can actually be changed. But nobody has shown you what's actually the problem. That's why I wrote this book. And so when you look at that place where it's like, how am I going to execute? The execution, it should be a process of expansion and expression of your powerful self. But what most people are doing is they're chasing after something to get something. I call it the difference between the dark energy and the light energy. It's like growing up where you have a chip on your shoulder, you're going to prove to someone somewhere that you're, got the moxie, that you can do what it takes, that you deserve, that you're worthy, etc. And that will work to a degree and you'll get to some level of quote unquote success, whatever you'll call it. But then at some point, it becomes, what's the saying? What got you here is actually keeping you here.
Right.
And you can't get beyond that until you slide into another gear. And this is the work I do with clients, is to then go to this place of understanding this core, that element of who you are, so that now what you're seeking is actually something you already possess. And now the work that you do is an expansion of that from this place of source and supply, overflow. It's that abundant state. And this is what we've forgotten in light of everything that's going on in the world. Everything's making us feel like a victim. We're like that frog in the boiling water, and we feel out of control. And yet we've got this ambition, and that's the duality. Both can still exist. It's how you pursue the ambition. From what state are you pursuing it? That makes all the difference.
And there's oftentimes uncertainty. You don't know how things are going to turn out strategically or whatever. How can leaders become more comfortable with making these decisions when they don't have all the answers, and maybe they won't?
Yeah. And especially in light of everything we've just defined, to think that there is a destination you're headed towards or a measurement at that destination that will say you're qualified to whatever commitment you made is a near impossibility. And so in the book, I give this example of one of my clients, Michael, where he was trying to say, hey, if I stop what I'm doing, he was working for this automobile dealership. And he was the CFO and he had all his responsibilities. He hated it. It's not what he wanted to do. And he had used the money he was making in that to go to school and get a degree, because what he wanted to do was get into this coaching area. He wanted to be an executive coach. And he said, how can I replace, he was making $200,000 a year. How can I replace this income by coaching? And I was like, well, we just have to build the model and we have to position you properly. And there's some, different things that we have to put in place to make sure that you can get there. And he said, but can you guarantee me that I can? And I said, no. And anybody who tells you otherwise is lying. I said, what's more important is, are you headed in the direction that you want your life to go? Because if you follow the direction, you can end up not only at the destination, but far beyond, because you haven't limited yourself in what's possible. In this same way, if you are looking at uncertainty It's not about knowing what's in front of you. It's knowing we're headed in this direction and we have the freedom to pivot, to adapt, to be agile along the way. And suddenly we're not bound to a strict, direction of KPIs, but rather these KPIs are leading us in the direction that we feel the company is leading us thus far. But if the market tells us something different, if there's another opportunity within our product, our SaaS product or our service, then we can follow that and not feel like we are, compromising the goals that we set forth. And that's the difference between direction and destination.
Right. And you actually talk about also in the book, people pleasing as a form of attainment, which I thought was an interesting way to put it. And, why does external validation maybe remain to be such a thing that everyone seeks, a powerful force, for folks that are even accomplished leaders? And maybe tell us how should you manage that to better move forward in your career?
Yeah. So that same thing that I said earlier about having your own personal power, your own sovereignty, your own agency, never has that been more important because we are so conditioned to have someone else's approval. In the book, I talk about, it started when you were in, school and you had to raise your hand.
Right.
You had to be picked. You had to be picked to go to the bathroom. You had to be picked to answer a question. You had to be picked to be on the kickball team. You had to be picked to be on the little league team. Like all these different things are someone external giving you permission to be a part or to be able to do. And so we've been conditioned through all of our lives, like, oh, what school can I get to? I apply at all the schools and hopefully I get one of my top 3 because I have to get picked. And then I apply for all these jobs hoping that I'll get picked. And so along the way, we start to get conditioned that other people's opinions matter more than my own. And because of that, now you're in this constant state of being fraudulent to your own consciousness, to your own soul. And you will alienate self for the betterment of someone else to make them happy, them pleased, or them validating you in your position or role. And so there's an interesting dynamic that's kind of happening right now, just related to this. I'll just throw this in as a little tidbit, is the last 200 so years have been an experiment of this thing we call employment. Prior to that, almost all of us were entrepreneurs where we bartered or trade some kind of a service or a good that we created or grew. And that was our exchange for our livelihood. And then we got into the Industrial Revolution and we started building these, huge structures of corporate enterprise, and people got all these quote unquote jobs, and we built our education system to train people into compliance, and they became these employees. And now that whole system is getting disrupted with information being readily available to anyone. And at this time in history is the only technological expression in all of history. Go back to the wheel, to fire, to farming, to automobiles, to planes, to computers. Artificial intelligence is the only technology that will actually show you how to use it. So if we're no longer going to be in this place of having as much employment opportunity, and we have to become the entrepreneurs that bring meaning and contribution and value to such a degree that people will pay us for it, then what if we use that technology now to ask it how to, I built my website. I replaced a number of apps, coding it myself. If you asked me 4 months ago, I didn't know how to do any of this shit. None of it. Now I know about JSON. I know about SQL. I know about my Supabase and my Vercel, and I know how to put all this stuff where it needs to go. And I've replaced $220 a month of subscriptions with stuff I built myself. And so if we look at this whole thing about who must I become for what this season is requiring, then I have to go internal and no longer worry about everyone else's fucking opinion and say, what is the life I want to create? Because I now have more power and possibility in my hands that if I will simply give myself permission to step into it, I can make magic happen.
I love that. It's very, very powerful. I think people need to definitely listen in and get your kind of, perspective, because I think people are underestimating themselves, and you talk about that, right? They're underestimating the time we're in, like with the ability to do everything you just said is like no other time. I went to school to learn how to code, and it was hard back then. And now it's like everyone can code. It's like, it's really wild. All right. So tell me a little bit more about how people could maybe not underestimate themselves and be higher performers and maybe step fully into their potential.
Yeah.
Through leveraging some of the tactics you have or framework, I guess you call it, operating system.
Yeah. So the C3 protocol, when you look at that, there's a context of the 3 C's. The first one is this place of clarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we talked about is knowing who you are, knowing what you're for. I start every conversation with what I call the Spice Girl principle. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. Come on, Frank, tell me what you want. And then most people will tell you all the things that they don't want. Well, I don't want this. I don't want that. And it's like, no. What do you really want?
And it's almost like, right? They get through all the things they don't want. And then
only to get to the place where they're almost exasperated because I just push them like, I just want da 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 da. And I'm like, now, how do we build for that? Mm-hmm. So once you get clear on that, so with your business, it's like you have to also look at what are the things that I'm creating in the culture of my business? What are the things we're doing to, again, bring meaning and contribution through our product or service? Those are some key components because with that clarity as the leader trickles down into clarity within the team. They know where they stand. They know that there's this element of vision, right? That's part of it. And from that clarity, once you get to that point, say, hey, I know exactly where we're going, what we're doing. I don't know that we're going to get there precisely. I just know that we're going to figure it out. Well, then suddenly we get to the second piece, which is this place of capacity. It's the ability to hold that pressure, to hold that, the things that come at you as you're building. And it can be as little as, some competitor beating you to the punch. It can be, trying to get product market fit. Like there's so many, hidden variables along the path. And yet you have the capacity to hold it without, losing your shit. That capacity is that part I talked about, in that resilience. It's smoothing out the ride. That capacity underneath that pressure, which I will just throw this one in, is almost every high performer I've ever worked with requires pressure to perform. Like the moment you say, hey, why don't you just retire and just, take off and play golf? They're like, no, that sounds the most miserable thing. They could do that for like 2 days. And it's like, I'm done. I got to get to work. I got to figure something else. I got to do, because we have this need to do and to produce. And there's nothing wrong with that ambition. So don't hear me wrong in saying like, hey, let's let you free of all of that. No, we have to have some sort of pressure because that pressure causes us to be in a position of power. And then once we're supporting that capacity, then we go into this place of composure, where because we can hold things, we create an environment that make people feel safe. There's this quiet confidence about us that people get around us. I'm not going to say stoicism, but it leans in that direction. And in the book, I talk about you actually enter into this state I call the nothingness. Nothing to gain, nothing to prove, and nothing to lose. And it's the most powerful person in any room. And when a leader has this clarity and this sense of capacity to stand in this kind of composure, finding A-level talent is easy. People want to work with you. They want to follow you. They want to be a part of what you're doing. When you stand in that C3 protocol, you become the kind of leader that others aspire, that others want to invest in, because you develop a sense of trust. You're not being fraudulent. You're not putting on a facade. You're not people pleasing. You step into a place where all of a sudden your decision quality is starting to get better. Your ability to communicate improves dramatically. You're no longer second guessing yourself. You trust that instinct, that thing that started in the first place, you now are back in connection with. And your team feels like they have ownership because you're no longer trying to control everything just to quote unquote help. You're letting them own their KPIs and they perform at higher levels than they ever could before. Your relationships start to flourish. You're no longer trapped in the overthinking and the overanalysis. You have this clarity in amongst all the crazy and the chaos. Because you know who you are. You're no longer driven by fear. You stand in the confidence of the things you've built and knowing that you're going to be able to step into whatever's next. That's the kind of leadership stability this world is desperate for. Because right now, most leadership is found in the boastful and the loud. There's a vacuum of toxic leadership because those that have the most powerful to bring transformation in this world are being quiet, are being afraid. And the world cannot afford your hesitation any longer. We need you to step into your power.
Very inspiring. Very inspiring. For those that are maybe an entrepreneur or founder or, thinking about starting something, maybe share a little bit more about like what's one thing that they should do today or tomorrow or stop doing immediately. One of the above to kind of move forward and get a little bit more of in the headspace of what you're talking about.
Well, I would say let's start there. Your headspace. What are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you spending time? If you were to see that your heart, your mind, your soul was the most valuable piece of real estate that you could possibly have, how would you protect that? Like, what are the things that you would invest into it? And start that way. Number one, what are the stories you're telling yourself? Are you full of, self-hate, self-loathing? Are you beating yourself up? Are you, committing sabotage? Well, then what are the stories you need to reverse and tell yourself new stories? Like, all the stuff I've gone through has just been tuition that I paid to today's graduation. All these things I've gone through, they weren't there to harm me or to hurt me. They were actually there to help me, to kind of like soften the rough edges, to give me humility, to give me more understanding and compassion for the people around me. Maybe the hardships that I went through were actually to build some resilience in me in a different context than other people. And then secondarily, what are the things I'm listening to on a daily basis? Am I just flipping on the news and leaving on talk radio or whatever else that's all built around agitation? Or do I get some personal development? Do I listen to some audiobooks or podcasts that speak life? I'm not talking about business principles. I'm not talking about, how to set up your Claude cowork. There's a place for that. But what I'm actually talking about is like, what's the stuff that speaks to your power? And then secondarily, this would be thirdly, is then also that thing I said before is like, what if you spent 10 minutes a day with affirmations, with quotes, with words of inspiration that speak to your true power? And you can reach out to me if you want help with that. Like I've got tools for that. Just find me on LinkedIn. And then lastly is who are you surrounding yourself with? The people. Are these people, like, I like to be the poorest, dumbest person in any room because that's the only way you grow. You listen to their conversations. You listen to what matters to them and what's meaningful to them. What are they putting their focus on? And you will suddenly see that those people think very different than you, and they operate very differently than you. And then this nervous system, what are you doing to like move the energy in your body? Because that's what's happening. You're getting energy stuck in your body. Energy cannot be created. It cannot be destroyed. It can only be moved. And so doing stuff like yoga, breath work, meditation, visualization, even just going to the gym, exhaust the body, tame the mind, as Dan Martell says all the time. Like, do these things that move the energy through your body, and suddenly you get clarity. Yeah. I guarantee if you start there, the other actions that you want to take are on the other side of getting yourself in a state ready to receive it. And the universe is amazing at showing you areas of your life where you are not yet free. Yeah. And so it will confront you and invite you at the same time.
That's a great reminder. I mean, fuel yourself first, build your power within, and it's going to obviously radiate. And I love that about what you're telling everyone here and sharing. And for those not familiar, the book is out there. It's on Amazon. It's a Neuroresilient Leader. You can get it right away. Check it out. Angus, thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I could probably talk to you another hour. You've got some really great insights about how to handle the life we live.
Yeah, seriously.
And I appreciate you being here. So if folks want to find you, the best way, you mentioned LinkedIn. What's the best place? Is it angusnelson.com, the other place to go?
You can go to angusnelson.com. And I'll tell you what, I want this mission to get out more than I want to sell my freaking books. Yes, you can buy my book, but go to freebook.vip and get it for free. Download a PDF. If any of this has resonated with you, I want you to have this book, and you can decide what to do with it later, but at least peek through the pages and see if this book is for you. Go to freebook.vip. AI is going to process things faster than we can handle. It's going to continue to be chaotic, but you don't have to be. properly regulated, you will be the most competitive advantage to your business or to anything you put your hand to. That's the invitation and the challenge.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here, Angus. And thank you, audience, for being here as well. This is the Established Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Established Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, leave us a review in the App Store, and share the show with friends, colleagues, and on social. Together, we can help more innovators become established. We'll be back with another conversation soon.